What are the best familiars in Anime Vanguards Update 8? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video, because not using familiars is honestly such a bad move because these familiars are so insane. By the way, chat, our goal is to get to 100k subscribers eventually, so if you want to help me reach that goal, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get this video started. Alrighty, so let's get started with the first 3 best familiars, and these familiars are the absolute best that you actually need to have on certain units. So without further ado, let's start with the most infamous one, which is going to be BIRB. So this is the familiar that we are talking about right here. BIRB, Pet Bird, Random Water Spark, Blast Damage plus 2 to 5%. That really doesn't matter right here. Ventriloquism is really the one that's the most insane. Changes damage by plus 20%. So basically, with BIRB, you have a chance to have a max damage BIRB of 20%. It's basically ethereal that's in a familiar, right? That's how people called it back then, or even all the way until now. If you get a good BIRB, you can basically have ethereal in a familiar on top of having Monarch as well, which can increase your damage insanely high. And that is one of the reasons why BIRB is the most important familiar. Obviously, you have to get lucky with your corruption and with the rolls. Obviously, you have to get lucky with the stat rolls with ventriloquism, because you can get negative stats here. Like you could, instead of buffing your damage, it could be negative instead, so you could be debuffing your damage. So yeah, BIRB is incredibly powerful, but he could either be the worst or the best familiar in the game. But obviously, with the events right now, with the unending range, the different shops that they give us, we can now get these coins right here. These coins, you could obviously use them to buy Phoenix Shards, Corruption Crystals, and all that other stuff. So for example, like me, I have a bunch of Phoenix Shards and Corruption Crystals, so it's honestly not that big of a problem anymore. The tier list for Anime Vanguards right here, the overall optimal trait familiar tier list right here. If you take a look at the broken tier, the optimal trait is Monarch. The optimal familiar for most of these units are BIRB. So as you guys can see right here, BIRB. This one is BIRB or Nose. This one is BIRB. Obviously, this one is Gojo's Glasses. This one is BIRB. So the optimal familiar for most of the damage units in the game, or most of the units in the game, is actually BIRB. Now, apart from BIRB, there's also another really great familiar that you actually need to have for units that has meter. Now, units that has meter was really overpowered, at least before update 7. Right now, most of the units don't really need a meter anymore. But if you're still using units that has meters, then you're gonna need to have a Black Spirit. One of the units that are really great right now still is going to be Smith John, Not Good Guy, Bacon, Lefelt. Those are still really powerful units. And if you really want to maximize those units, you need to have a Black Spirit on them. Now, my Black Spirits are mostly bad. Like if you take a look right here, my Black Spirit only has 60% more meter, which is just absolutely really bad. But if you could get like 100% Black Spirit, that would be really nice for those units that has meters. But now to the number 3, which is the newest addition out of all of these new familiars. And it's really overpowered, which is because it's a familiar that you mainly need to use on your farm units. And this is going to be the new Silly Spirit familiar. Now, the Silly Spirit familiar is really great for your farms, because for every placement of this unit placed, decreases upgrade cost by 4.8%. Which means that if you use it on the Sprint Wagon, you could get a really good discount on your Sprint Wagon. Like for me, for example, since my Silly Fairy familiar is at 4.8%, if you multiply that by 3, I would be able to have a decent amount of cost reduction on my farm, which is my Sprint Wagon. It's also pretty good for characters like Slime King, but mostly I believe this is going to be used for characters like Sprint Wagon, you know, because he is a farm that has multiple placements. Technically, you can also use it for Takaroda, because Takaroda counts as a placement. I mean, if you do the math here, you could still get like a 4.8% or 5% cost reduction on Takaroda. Honestly, everything counts, and if you use it on Takaroda, that might still be able to help you out. But yeah, this is a really must-have familiar. Silly Fairy is really powerful, as it will definitely reduce the cost of your farms. Let me show that to you right here and how that works. So right now, if I place down my farm right here, you will see that it costs 550, but its first upgrade is 199. If I place multiple of them, all of them will have 599 because they're 3 placement. Actually, sorry, it actually decreased because it's per placement, right? So if there's only one of them, it's 999. If there's two of them, it's 949. If there's three of them, it's 898. So that's actually really, really nice. Now, if I change my lineup right here and maybe bring a couple of sprint wagons, so right here, I'm going to be placing down a sprint wagon. Its upgrade cost is 1,050, which is actually very high, in my opinion, compared to the 898, I believe, that we had with the familiar. So 1,050 right here. With our familiar one, it's going to be 898. So that's a pretty big difference. At max upgrade, it's 2611. At max upgrade here without the familiar, it's going to be 3050. Now, if you add all of that, since there's 3 of these characters, it actually does add up a decent amount. It will allow you to basically be able to max out your farms faster. And the faster you max out your farms, the more yen you're going to be able to get. The more yen you get, the more upgrades you'll be able to do on your units. But there are still some other pretty good familiars that I actually wanted to talk about. There's actually one as well that I want to mention, which is also pretty good. There's a familiar that actually increases the amount of buff that you can do to your allies, or actually helps with that. So for example, right here, anytime the equipped unit applies an effect on an ally, buff that ally or ally's damage by 5%. So if, for example, you apply or give this specific familiar to characters like Griffith that has a buff, if you can get the max, which is 15%, that Griffith will now do 55% buff instead of 40% buff only. So this is pretty good if you want to place it on buffing characters. This is also pretty good right here for people that has active abilities that they spam. So this one is actually really, really good for characters like Gogeta. This is pretty good to counter regenerating enemies. Enemies hit by this unit have their HP regeneration reduced by 1 to 50%. It could also have this one right here, 75% if you can corrupt it permanently. So this is really great if you are struggling against regenerating enemies. Characters specifically like the Boo unit that has a passive that requires you to have certain kills. Bobby T is actually really, really great. Now, I would also want to mention the other familiars that we have right now, specifically the strongest Gojo familiar, the Gojo glasses, and then the one from the King's Return familiar, the where is it? The Sukuno's finger, which is basically, these are going to be familiars that boost certain characters. Now, for the strongest or the Gojo glasses, it's obviously Gojo. For Sukuna's finger, it's obviously Sukuna. Now, these are must-haves in my opinion if you want to make use of Gojo. Like for example, for Gojo, since I have Monarch on Gojo, I got the familiar for Gojo because it makes Gojo a lot better. Are they must-haves though? I would say they're must-haves if you have Monarch on those units. Like if you have Monarch on Gojo or Sukuna, they're probably gonna be must-haves. But if you don't, then I don't think they're gonna be must-haves because they're not limited by any means. Like they will be obtainable eventually. Once this event disappears or goes away, they will be obtainable in the game, but it's gonna be harder. Now, there's also another really, really powerful familiar that I thought to mention, and it's basically going to be Strange Cat. Now, the problem with Strange Cat and with BIRB is these units are really, really hard to get a really great one. Like, you really have to get really almost perfect corruptions in order to make the most out of this. Like, for example, right here, this one has corruption 4 already. Gives me an extra fire damage of plus 10%, increased damage by 7.5%, and range by 3.6%. So that's really, really good. But there are some other Strange Cats out there that has like plus 30%, plus 40%. And the really, really good Strange Cats will boost your damage by insanely high. But it's really hard to get a good one. The thing with BIRB at least is that you have critical chance, critical damage, range, and damage as well. It's not really just damage. With Strange Cat, it's just damage. So that's why, in my opinion, Strange Cat is not as good as BIRB. But still, I thought it's worth mentioning that familiar as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. If you found this video helpful, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.